Hello everyone and welcome to the Smashi Business Show. Today is Thursday, November 13, 2025 and I'm Abdul Majid Awan.
And I'm Richard Fitzgerald and we have some juicy stories to discuss today. Good morning, Majid. How are you?
I'm great. Just to tell you the headlines and then we'll move on. Comcast CEO explores Saudi backing, Saudi PIF's backing for potential Warner Brothers Discovery bid. Whoop is eyeing an IPO within 2 years as it expands health tracking technology. Wilhelm at CEOS said that Goldman Sachs to collect record $110 million fee advising on the $55 billion Saudi PIF-Backed EA deal. These are the main stories, but we see that Web Summit Lisbon is happening and we're very interested. Rich was telling me the other day that we should do a roundup, but I think today is the last day. We have a lot of people there from the UAE. You gave a list on Reactive. There's the Qatar people are there. We did a post on Love in Doha as well. So Web Summit is happening.
Yeah, it's the one that takes place in Lisbon every year. I think they have about 80 or 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Started off in Dublin in around 2010, and sort of a bidding war in Europe of cities to host it. It drives a lot of tourism as Portugal rebranded their country as a startup country, which is fascinating for countries in the region to see how one could do that. A lot of people now want to get residential visas in Lisbon, in Portugal. There's a lot of startups, hubs based out of there. I remember being on stage at Web Summit Qatar interviewing a member of the government of Portugal with a member of the Qatari government as well, discussing these topics of how you can reposition your country with policies, but also with events like this. So yeah, there's always been a contingent of regional people going to events around the world, whether it's Cannes Line, whether it's South by Southwest, CES, and Web Summit Lisbon is no different. Obviously, this is a little bit more closer to home because we do startups here and we've got Web Summit in Qatar. But just to put in perspective, Qatar is entering into its third year. It started off with sort of a max capacity of 5,000 people. Lisbon's at 80,000, so we went up to 10, 15,000 last year in Qatar. They don't have aspirations to make it the same size. It's a different type of it. It's a more boutique, higher-end type of an event, but there is demand for these type of events in the region. People who are doing startups in the region who want to have events, want to have investments, they do pop over to Lisbon. They get their stands and they pitch and they try and meet investors, people who have a global outlook, which is many startups to be fair. But yeah, one Ionder FTSE fund invested in Moontech, their Emirati kind of affiliate marketing influencer tech platform. They're there, they're very happy with how things are going. There's a few content creators there, like Ahmed Fayed from Dose of Society is there, so is Upton. From the region, and yeah, there's a lot of representation from the region. Even like media agencies and creatives and brands can go because the speaker lineup is quite stellar. They always Web Summit are just good at bringing in that kind of celebs.
You told me a story about Paddy Cosgrave, I think, last year when you introduced me to Web Summit. Before that, I just knew the idea. Told me a story about him that he went and then he came back. That was very interesting. I would want you to tell me that story again because I think a lot of listeners would want to know that something happened where he went out, he came back to Web Summit or something of that
sort? So, Paddy Cosgrove, co-founder with different Irish people originally. They built it out of Dublin, out of Ireland, and it's been 15 years. So there's a lot of, say, ups and downs as it progressed out of Dublin. Paddy has a way with media, so he's often in the news in Ireland for non-Web Summit things. He's a champion for certain types of politics, which he keeps separate to Web Summit, to be fair, but in the Irish media is a well-known personality, he's a well-known figure. And yeah, there have been court cases over the years involved in ownership struggles and things like that. And then there was, after October 7th, there was a cancellation of Paddy Cosgrove, which made him miss one of the Web Summits and things like that, and temporarily step down. But there has been the Web Summit does reach the news through him in different ways. But as an ecosystem, as a tech startup ecosystem, it goes from strength to strength, even if the term web is different now than it was 15 years ago. But how they operate and how they run make them a bit unique. Like they do sort of see themselves as and this is probably just a pitch, but they see themselves in the startup business world as the Olympics or the World Cup, you know, or the F1. Like if you are a country or an entity or a government or a state and you put coffers or funds towards attracting something, you know, whether it's the Olympics then or the F1, you think an ecosystem of tourism can build around that. And similarly with the business world, and that's the pitch, and that's what governments and entities sort of sign up to. They've got, they're in Lisbon now. Yeah. They do Rio in May. They've done Rio for 2 years. They've had Coliseum conferences in Asia, another brand name, and they also have done this in Canada. Yeah. And yeah, that's always the pitch. They, you know, typically if you're launching an event, you have to put up all the money. Whereas, you know, if a government does it for you, then you can benefit from that as well. And that's sort of the pitch, and that's sort of what works. I think what we've seen in the region is, you know, Informa, we talked about their CEO moving from the UK to here. They've always done a good job. Jitex has been sort of, I think, retransferred ownership back over to government entity in Dubai. But we've got Tahaluf in Saudi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, as a JV. With Informa, and they do great events in Saudi all the time. And this week we saw, I'm not sure if it's a story for today, but you guys covered it yesterday, Tortoise, is that what we're calling it? The tourism conference that started.
Tourize something, yeah.
Tourize, which is better, more than Tortoise, but Tourize is what looks like to me as on the offset. And before I sort of jump into it, I know our team, Aboud and Hani were there in Riyadh this week, but it does look like to me that it's Saudi's attempt of an ATM, Arabian Travel Market. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons for a lot of these events. Obviously, Saudi have their Leap. Leap is basically a web summit. Yeah. In terms of numbers, volume, scale, packaging. Yeah. And it's a regional version. And then Web Summit in Qatar is a smaller version, but it's excellent. It's really, really good. We like going there, Majid, don't we?
Yeah, last year we went, and the most interesting thing was Paddy saying that he chose Qatar over UAE and Saudi Arabia. And he didn't say UAE and Saudi exactly, but he said a lot of people approached me from the region, but we chose Qatar. And it shows you kind of like that Qatar is building up to that position where UAE and Saudi are in terms of event. All the companies that you've named, we never see someone coming out of Qatar, but Web Summit chose Qatar.
I wouldn't put it like that, because if you put it like that, it's like he's choosing sides. What he actually he chose the region. Yes. Because people say, why are you going there, Paddy? Why are you doing Middle East? Why are you doing Saudi, human rights, and all this sort of constant criticism that the region gets for people who don't fully understand it. But so it's not that the headline shouldn't be that he choose one country over the other. The headline should be that, like many people, that he choose to bring his brand to the region, that he saw the startup opportunity. And to him, it was the best bids, right? The best partnership. But it's a 5-year deal. They're 3 years in. You know, who knows where it goes next? Like, he has shown that he will host this elsewhere. 1 second, you keep talking.
So the main thing is that Web Summit is happening. Day 3 is here. Most probably by the end of the day, we'll do a wrap-up post to tell you whatever is happening. There's very big names there. Khabi Lame is there. Khabi is there. I saw his speech. The first time I saw him actually speak so much. But then moving on, let's go to our first top story of the day, which is Comcast CEO Brian Roberts has reportedly, according to New York Post, traveled to Saudi Arabia as part of ongoing efforts to explore a potential bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. According to multiple reports, Roberts met with representatives from the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the kingdom's nearly $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund, during his visit.
What a fascinating conversation this is going to be. But so the tip coincided with the high-profile FII initiative in Riyadh, where global business leaders gathered under the patronage of Crown Prince Hamad bin Salman. Sources say Roberts also visited Qiddiya, which is where the Six Flags is, and it's almost pretty ready, open. If you look on Lovin Riyadh's page today, influencers were given that sort of tour of that event there. So Six Flags and Dragon Ball Z-themed amusement park, Parks and Resorts, is under construction with growing interest in Universal Studios' presence.
Just a small mic problem, but Comcast valued at roughly $100 billion, is said to be working with Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley as it considers a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. The company may require major financial backing to fund this whole deal, which could value Warner Brothers Discovery at up to $70 billion.
So what we're talking about here is a potential Comcast PIF alliance could mark one of the most dramatic shifts in global entertainment landscape. However, such a partnership would likely face intense scrutiny both from US regulators and within media circles, given the political sensitivity surrounding Saudi involvement.
We've always talked about it, and Rich was just talking about it, that whenever Saudi tries to go anywhere and do something, there always is a problem with, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing that. But how do you solve this problem? How do you say that, no, Saudi Arabia is investing for the sake of investing. They're not investing for the sake of just giving money and trying to sports watch. There's every term. I think you must have heard the conversation between me and Worth. Whenever there is something that Saudi tries to do, they take the word washing and add something in front of it. Sports washing, green washing, if they talk about sustainability. This also is trying to buy a big media giant, basically Warner Brothers Discovery.
So I think there's a couple of ways of looking at this. Firstly, let's just dial it back 1 second. So what's happening here is years and years ago, we talked about it yesterday, the day before, AT&T are a telco, and they bought a lot of content. So they bought a lot of HBO, and they put a lot of things together. Then they spun it out. So a smaller entity, Discovery Channel, led by David Zaslav and invested by John Malone Liberty Media, they then bought the content assets out of AT&T, and they called this merged company Warner Brothers Discovery. But under Warner Brothers was CNN, was HBO, and many other cable networks in the US. So in the US you can have TV channels, you can have cable networks or anywhere, and you can have studios that have theatrical releases, and you have streaming services. And they also had their own streaming service under WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery. They actually had a few. One of the ones was called Max, rebranded as HBO, rebranded again as Max. I don't know if you call a different word of rebranded a few times, but they kept on rebranding their streaming service, and they got up to tens of millions of subscribers in the US. It's not a Netflix level, but it is quite big in the US. It's a streaming service. But when they bought Warner Brothers and the things underneath it into Warner Brothers Discovery, they saddled it with debt. So Zaslav's first few years, this is about 3-4 years ago, first few years was to get rid of the billions of dollars of debt, but he couldn't do it. And it put them in a bit of trouble, and their share price was languishing. And what transpired lately is he sort of agreed to sell it. And now this is a big coup, because you've got HBO, right? You have CNN, you have the Warner Brothers IP. Warner Brothers IP is everything. There's so much in it. It's almost as big as Disney. And you've obviously got Discovery, and you've got so many other things in there. I'm probably missing a few because it's so big. So what are the pieces? So who can buy this, right? Yeah. Now, and that's the conversation that's super interesting. David Zaslav is, I don't follow American media inside out, but basically he's well known. He's been in the industry for a long time, and he's also likes to be seen at events. He goes to front row of NBA games and things like this. So, but who's the buyer? So now, quietly, he's sort of admitted lately that he is selling. So what happens then, Majid, is people sort of submit bids, and people deny that they're submitting bids. So what we do know is that there are 3 types of buyer here. There's the sort of new emerging entity, which is the Ellisons, shall we say, Larry and David. So Larry is the elderly father, so is the father, obviously. So he's the Oracle guy, and David's the son. Larry is in his 70s or 80s, and David's in his early 40s. David, over the last 10 years, built up Skydance, which is a Mission Impossible type. Not Mission Impossible. Basically, it's a production house, and then out of nowhere, they got $7 billion together, and they bought Paramount Studios. Did they buy Paramount or one of them? They bought one of them, right? And now through Larry Ellison, they're trying to bid for TikTok in the US. But they also have sent letters of interest to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. So people are wondering, is this an attempt to put all these things together and build a new behemoth? And then on the other side, you have streaming services. Will Amazon bid? Will Apple bid?
Yeah.
Will Netflix bid? Netflix, we said, have appointed, I think, Goldman Sachs to look at this. And then now, so where does Brian Roberts and his dad originally founded that Comcast entity? So where does that come into it? So Comcast have Peacock, a streaming service, and Comcast have been laying low lately. They haven't been bidding for anything. But they've got like a bit of telco in there. They've got a lot of stuff on the subscription side, and they have CNBC, and they have a few other things on their cable side of that. But Comcast, our share price are good. They're known to be really well run over the last few years, and Brian Roberts is known to be a very shrewd negotiator and all that sort of side. So, but does he have the funds? And what sort of funds are we talking about? We're talking about 50 billion. We're not talking about 7 billion, and that's small, but we're talking huge numbers. And why is the Saudi play crucial here? Because what happened, and I think it's our third story, but what happened lately, EA was bought by about 50 billion or so, or more. And but the PIF weren't the lead on that. They were part of the deal. So what America and FII and what people are seeing now is new entities can be spun up. And we talked about Ari Emanuel and Mari.
Yeah.
He put in a 2 billion thing. He got funds from the region. IMI were involved. So what the shrewd global business people are seeing is that, okay, Saudi mightn't buy me all right with a check and operate, but what they might do is they might create a new entity, a JV, to help the bidding process. And I'll still be involved. I won't have 100% ownership. PIF, with all their shrewd bankers and their smart sovereign wealth operators that they've got, they will be part of this new entity. Yes. So we've seen that with Surge Sports in the sporting arena. We see that, and Live Golf now is becoming really well operated. I heard them speak at FII as well. So what we're seeing isn't that PIF come in and operate this thing as private equity or whatever and then spin it back out. But we're seeing that another vehicle is they're putting in billions and operate. And I think that's how EA will be operated. Yeah. But is this unprecedented? Not really. Why? In terms of numbers. So when Rupert Murdoch was sort of selling off the studio side of his News Corp, he sold off Fox to Disney under Iger before Iger was replaced by Bob Chapek. But that was a sort of 5-7 years ago, and they spent 72 billion on this sort of whole 21st Century Fox. So on Instagram feed this morning, I'm seeing a trailer of the new Devil Wears Prada with a collab post between Disney and 21st Century Fox showing how IP lives now. So Disney own Devil Wears Prada because it's a studio, because Iger spent 72 billion on it, on top of all his Marvel and all those acquisitions. That was the last huge big one that he did. He's not bidding for this. I'd be mad if they did. Yeah. I bet he'd love to. But basically, so what you've got here now is, the way that Saudi would come into it would be this. The American media are all over this, but they haven't mentioned Saudi once on any podcast. Yeah. New York Post actually covered this, which is Murdoch's. They covered this yesterday, that Brian Roberts was in Saudi to do a deal. But US, Hollywood, all these sort of media channels are just obsessed with this story. They're talking about two stories at the moment. They're talking about YouTube and Disney fighting over NFL rights. Or whatever, YouTube TV, which is in the US, not here, and they're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery because they're sort of obsessed with, this sort of story because it's all IP and it's big and it's the future media and it's David Ellison, it's politics and it's blah, blah, blah. So they're sort of, but they've been talking about it from a lens of America, which is fine because it's the only lens they have. But we're sort of looking at it from another lens, and we're sort of saying, well, what if PIF was a player? And it seems to be.
Yeah. And I think PIF makes sense because, again, they have the money. Even, to be honest, we talked about we covered a lot of the Telegraph story from IMI, Redbird IMI, the merger that was made, and then they couldn't get it, but they got 15%. Literally, UK had to put a law in place. So my point is that they want the money, but they don't want to give us that attention that no, everyone is going there.
I think we're beyond that. I think we're beyond that. I know you bring up the IMI and Telegraph story, but I think we're beyond international deals like EA, Mari. Like we're seeing so many deals that are done from the region. Yes, on some level, if it's a state broadcaster, if it's BBC or if it's something like that, then could that end up in Saudi hands? Yeah, I'm sure there'll always be discussions, and there's books written about it, and there's always to do with like control and things like that. But I think what we're seeing now is these structures of deals where, they want the money, but also it's not that I wouldn't even say that they're sort of like, oh, they're just here to take the money. We can say that in other languages, but in this sort of thing, how else are you going to structure a bid? How else are you going to get 50 billion together, right? And what a good partnership, like we've seen with Microsoft and many things over the years, good partnerships and deal structure are win-win scenarios. And everyone needs to be able to participate in some degree. How would Saudi win? Would they win hearts and minds in the US? Not necessarily. No. What they will do is they'll use the Warner Brothers Discovery IP to fill out Riyadh season, and we'll have so many different things in Saudi, in Qiddiya. Interesting, he goes to Qiddiya. Could there be, we have Warner Brothers Park in Abu Dhabi, could we have a Warner Brothers in Saudi alongside Six Flags in Qiddiya, which is a big space outside Riyadh? And the conversation keeps going and going of the potential. You know what's opening today in Saudi or tomorrow?
The Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. So it's going to be a big thing. Yeah. Beastland is opening.
Yeah, and it looks amazing. And I saw he posted on his Instagram last night, and the comments underneath of it are like, wow, they are going to be so impressed with what Saudi did in like a month. So there's what US and what media, what people understand is IP. And there's so much IP to be unlocked under Warner Brothers Discovery. But, and I should have given this context, I know I've spoken at length about it, but why is this seen to be a bit messy? Because the share price was declining. It's actually up now because of all the bids. But the losses are there, right? The media's changing. The Comcast are talking about spincos. Spincos as in you spin off your cable assets and separate to your streaming, because one is declining and one is going up. So why is this not an attractive proposition? Because it's not, the business model isn't as future-proof as it once was. So while everyone values IP, the whole industry around IP is a bit confused in terms of, do people still go to the cinema? Do you get cable fees? Can you make streaming profitable? So when an entity like Netflix would look to buy this, they would be looking at what can get them more subscribers and CTV revenue, not what can fill cinema chains or do theme parks. Although Netflix also opened their theme park. Not theme park, but they opened a consumer venue in the US recently. So there's so much to this.
Media insights. Rich is the best person for this. But moving on, we have one interesting story. Whoop, the Boston-based maker of screen-less fitness bands, which was founded by Will Ahmed, the Egyptian-American founder, is preparing for a potential initial public offering within the next 2 years. That's what the founder and CEO, Will Ahmed, said. The company is now well-positioned for an IPO after expanding its portfolio to include proprietary technology, analytics, software, and even apparel. Ahmed says the goal is to build a home of health, a company synonymous with personal wellness in the way Apple is with tech.
The move comes as Whoop continues discussions with the US Food and Drug Administration following a dispute over its blood pressure tracking tool. The FDA had requested the feature's removal earlier this year, citing certification issues, but Ahmed says talks have since taken a constructive turn.
And Whoop has the latest model. The Whoop MG, or medical grade, includes ECG monitoring, arterial fibrillation detection, basically the thing that leads to you knowing if you have a good heart, and blood work integration. The company is also exploring glucose monitoring as part of its next generation features. Unlike competitors, Whoop offers its devices through a membership model with annual plans reaching up to $359.
Founded in 2012, Whoop now employs over 700 people and operates in 60 countries around the world, with 60% of sales coming from outside the US. Public listing would cement its status as a leader in the fast-growing wearable wellness space, competing with the likes of Aura and I guess some of the Samsung products. But we also see Huawei have a large market share in smart watches as well.
Yeah, and Rich, the most inspiring part about it is that this guy comes from the region, built such a big brand, and now is going, at least thinking about going for an IPO in the next 2 years. We talk a lot about IPOs. He will most probably list in the US, not here. But how do you go there? Just how do you go there? How do you become Will Ahmed?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think he's ever said that he's from the region. Like I think it's part of the pitch that he's American, because you can, once you live in the US for a number of time, you can become a citizen. But yeah, I would love to have him interviewed in Egyptian dialect and see how he replies. But no, any time on stage here, and he's never shared any of the Smashi business stories with the Egyptian American lead. We're looking for heroes in the region. We're looking for Mohamed Salahs and things like that. And he hasn't stopped us from claiming him as a hero. But maybe one day he will. What he does like is he likes the region. He likes the progressiveness. He partnered with His Highness Sheikh Hamdan. Whoop are all for Emirates flight attendants. He also speaks at a lot of events in the region. He signed a deal. He signed a kind of a center. They launched a center in Qatar recently. He's been at the Bloomberg Economic Forum in Qatar. What I'm impressed by his leadership is he's a strong operator. He's very hands-on. He watches everything. Every time an athlete is seen to be wearing a whoop, he's always posting on his stories. He's obviously interested in sports, so he keeps his finger on the pulse across golf, across football, across lots of things. They partner with Ronaldo. They have a lot of heroes. Like I think Michael Phelps was one of the OG whoop wearers or whatever. So there's that. And if I was looking as an early investor or someone thinking of this IPO as a success, I would think that the way that he's very hands-on, and even the story that we brought up about the FDA, to show that it's taken a constructive, it means that you're leading the conversations, you're in the weeds, you're not outsourcing it, you're not whatever. So I think those companies are ones to watch out for. In terms of the sort of space, I spoke to an investor recently, again at FII, Amir Farha, who used to be with Bigco Capital. He now has his own fund, and he said we back the founders, but also the spaces that are hot right now are prop tech and health tech. And yes, we talked just about wearables, but this sort of intersection between wearables, technology, and health tech is a sweet spot of investors right now. And I think they're in a good space, and I think they have good leadership. I actually stopped wearing the whoop. Anecdotally, I worked for a while and I have a Garmin, so I just use this. But I just wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't getting much out of it, and you had to charge it all the time, and it's on your hand, but it's not a watch, and it's like So
that was going to be my next question. You've used it, right?
I stopped wearing Apple Watch. I stopped wearing Aura. I stopped wearing Whoop. I use a Garmin. I do triathlon. I use a Garmin, and I have all the apps, and the Garmin's enough for me. But But I think the clinics would want me to wear it because they can track me. But I can't read this data. You show me a glucose number and I won't know what to read it. I'm not a doctor, so it's not useful to me. And they talk about sleep and they talk about this and they talk about that. But so everyone has sort of anecdotal stories. But I think they're in the right space, and I think they've got a brand and they're top of mind. So I think it's a very interesting one.
I think in health tech, you'd say Whoop, everyone gets it. Even if they haven't used it, they know that it has something to do with the band, which everyone wears at some place.
And the UX UI, the app, the data is really good. But
I think Ronaldo wearing it makes sense because he has 10 people who can make that data make sense for him. That this time your glucose was low, so this time you should eat a banana or something.
There's a guy, Ali Hashmi, who is the founder of GluCare. We interviewed him on Smashi Business years ago. GluCare is it's called a diabetic center, but they're very much into data. And asking people to wear Auras and Whoops and stuff. I actually go there, and they're how advanced. Every time I go, every 3 months, they have new technologies. Majid, like last time, 3 months ago when I went, I did a body scan. They scan in a machine, and it takes maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, right? And you go around, and it tells you what to do. It's a big robot thing, and it's got screens. It does a whole thing. I went on Sunday, and in the same room that the body scan was there, they hooked up an iPad to the wall and they did it like in 15 seconds. Same thing, new technology. So they're constantly adding new technology. So, startups and founders in this space, whether you're Whoop or whether you're selling into hospitals, I think this sort of space is obviously on the rise. Data, like the decisions you can make around data is unbelievable, right? Like everyone's been to the doctor, and you get different diagnoses every time, but the data and the scans is just unbelievable. But
So the next story is, we'll just quickly go over it. Goldman Sachs, we talked about it a little bit also. It's set to earn its largest ever advisory fee, $110 million for advising Electronic Arts in its $55 billion sale to a consortium led by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, private equity firm Silver Lake, and Jared Kushner's affinity partners. The US bank served as EA's sole advisor on the deal, which closed in September recently.
We kind of touched on that, didn't we? Like the benefits and incentives as well. The disclosure also revealed that Goldman Sachs earned $24.3 million from PIF over the last 2 years for advisory work and underwriting, highlighting the growing importance of Gulf sovereign wealth funds, international investment to Wall Street's largest firms. Other banks involved included JP Morgan, collectively receiving roughly $500 million in fees. Let's open a consultancy firm. And JP Morgan providing $20 billion in debt financing for the transaction.
And Goldman's role underscores how advisory and financing work tied to Gulf capital has become a major focus for global banks. Dealmakers have increasingly invested time and resources in the region to tap into the surge of high-profile sovereign-backed transactions.
There's a really good guy who works for Goldman Sachs in DIFC. He's based in Kuwait as well, and I wonder. I met him at recently. Jassim is his name. I met him at the Landmark Group anniversary, 50 years in Landmark, or 25 years in Landmark. Sounds like
25.
50.
40, I think.
Older
I also
than
got
2000.
confused.
I think 50.
Yes, let's say 50.
There's definitely, they had moles in Kuwait before the year 2000, because 25 years ago isn't that long ago now. Can you check? Anyway.
50th.
50th, yeah. That was a year ago. Anyway, really nice guy, and it shows that, while we're talking about fees outside the region, these banks have a lot of presence in the region. There's a lot of people from the region working for them. So a lot of smart people as well. So the bank also has expanding its footprint in Saudi and the border Gulf. In 2024, it established a regional headquarters in Riyadh, and last month it launched onshore private wealth management services, positioning itself to capitalize on the growing flow of Gulf investments worldwide.
Just to close up, Rich, they are coming for money, I think. Everyone is coming for money. They all want the money that is here.
They want the money, but they do want the money. There is money here, but I think we're beyond this sort of I don't know. The conversation's always there.
Yeah.
Some people are saying morals and reasons and sports washing, all this sort of stuff. But I think in a world of partnerships and structure, I think sometimes people are also in a collaborative mindset.
Yeah.
And let's see. But on that one, isn't it fascinating how much fees?
Yeah,
110 million in fees?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just for one deal. And this is their largest consulting fees. Imagine, they couldn't get it out of Europe when they were in their golden days, from America, wherever they're funcking. They got it out of Middle East.
They did, but I think, obviously if there's $1 billion IPOs in the US, then people make fees too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating. I guess it leads to say why deals are a lot to do with incentive alignment.
Yeah.
And if the Goldman Sachs Riyadh office is going to get 100 million in fees because PIF and Comcast buy Warner Brothers Discovery, then you would put your forecasts, or put your money on the Saudi house.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see. I'd love to see one of those big entities involved. I'm more into media than EA than gaming, but I'd love to see it happen. But anyway, even so, I think we can build our own from this region as well.
It's the time of the Middle East, as we think and believe. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you for tuning into the Smashi Business Show. Make sure to follow us across all social media channels at Smashi Business, and stay ahead with our daily newsletter. You'll find the subscription link in the description. And this has been a Smashi Business Show, Smashi Business production, part of the Augustus Media Podcast Network. Rich has to run for an important meeting. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow on Friday with Word, inshallah. And
Thanks,
have a
guys.
great day. Bye-bye.